For my assignment, I chose option number 2, researching a researcher. The Canadian forensic psychology researcher that intrigued me the most is Dr. Stephen Porter, a current professor of psychology at the University of British Columbia. I chose this researcher because Porter has done extensive research on the topic of deception detection. Porter has conducted numerous studies to gain insight on our ability to deceive and our ability to detect deception. Porter has even conducted studies regarding the consequences of deception within the law and psychology. I am very interested in Porter's work and his findings since I am very interested in the topics of false accusations, deception within the legal system, and how that may lead to wrongful convictions. Porter, who was originally born in Deer Lake in Newfoundland and Labrador, received his PhD in forensic psychology and is now a psychology professor at the University of British Columbia. Apart from the dozens of research articles written by Porter, he has also co-written a psychology textbook called Forensic Psychology, A Canadian Perspective, with its second edition being released in 2013. Due to his vigorous research, Porter has been called to be an expert witness in multiple cases and has provided training in deception detection to many legal professionals such as judges, lawyers, and even law enforcement officers. Although these are all very impressive achievements, he has also received multiple awards. Some of his recent awards include an operating grant from the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada in 2010 until 2013, a discovery grant from the Natural Sciences and Engineer Research Council of Canada in 2010 until 2015, and last but not least, the Porter Lab was awarded the Canadian Foundation for Innovation Opportunity Fund in 2010. The following is a list of research articles that have either been written by or co-written by Stephen Porter. Although I have chosen 5 articles, I will only be discussing 3 in further detail and using the others for my final assignment, since I do not have time to discuss all 5 in depth. This first article, Reading Between the Lies, was written by Porter and his colleague, Leanne Ten Brink, in 2008. Porter and Brink have performed multiple studies and have written many research articles together. The purpose of this particular study was to examine the belief that many aspects of facial communication are uncontrollable. For this study, 41 undergraduate students volunteered to participate. These students were asked to display convincing or deceptive emotional expressions in response to a slideshow of images. These images were of universal emotion expressions such as happiness. Each image lasted 5 seconds and there were 5 seconds between each image. The results from this study found that negative emotions were much more difficult to fake than positive emotions. All participants also displayed emotional leakage within their expressions, and so their deception was noticeable. This study applies to the real world since it helps us gain insight on how to identify ungenuine universal emotions. The second article I am discussing, Sidetracked by Emotion, was written by Christine Peace, Stephen Porter, and Daniel Allman in 2011. The purpose of this study was to gain insight on the credibility of reports of sexual assault and to note if there are any individual differences in the ability of participants to detect deception. In this study, 119 undergraduate students were asked to evaluate sexual assault allegations. Upon arrival to the study, participants were asked to complete 2 self-report measures, the NEO 5-factor inventory and the emotion contagion scale. The NEO 5-factor inventory is a self-report questionnaire of 5 main personality traits. These 5 traits are neuroticism, extroversion, openness to experience, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. Participants rated questions from a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. The emotion contagion scale was also a self-report questionnaire and was used to measure the extent to which participants can empathize or identify with the emotions of others. This questionnaire also involved a scale from 1 to 5, this time 1 being never and 5 being always. After completing both questionnaires, participants were asked to evaluate 8 written sexual assault allegations, 4 of which were true and 4 of which were not. Finally, participants completed a final questionnaire regarding their judgment and reasoning for their decisions. Results from this study determined that accuracy of deception detection was below chance with an average of 45.3%. This means that there were not enough individual differences in deception detection and that detection was less than chance. This article can be applied to the real world since it is measuring how accurate deception detection is when evaluating written allegations and whether some individuals are able to detect lies better than others. The third and final article I'm discussing was written in 2012 by Alicia Baker, Leanton Brink, and Stephen Porter. The purpose of this study was to figure out if individual differences in emotional intelligence plays a role in deception detection. In this study, 116 participants were put into groups of 5 or less and asked to watch videos of individuals emotionally displaying pleas to save a loved one. In some videos, the individual making the plea was actually the perpetrator and had murdered the individual that they were making the plea for. Participants then judged which videos were deceptive and which were genuine. This study used the Trait Emotional Intelligence Questionnaire to measure the emotional intelligence of participants. This questionnaire was comprised of 30 questions related to well-being, self-control, sociability, and emotionality. Results from this study found that emotional intelligence was associated with overconfidence in the ability to detect deception. Since these individuals were more confident, they did not question their answers, and so they were worse at detecting emotional deception than participants that were not emotionally intelligent. This study can be applied to the real world since it will help us gain further insight on whether or not there are individual differences in detecting deception. More specifically, the study suggests that individuals that are emotionally intelligent might make more mistakes when deciding if a suspect is innocent or guilty than individuals that are less emotionally intelligent. Porter's research on deception detection can and has been used for educational purposes within the legal system. The articles that I have discussed help researchers to determine accuracy of deception detection, the ability for people to display convincing false emotions, and individual differences in deception detection. These findings can help in real-life cases of wrongful convictions and even false confessions. Although Porter has done an incredible amount of research on detection deception, there is still so much more that we can learn.